Hello, I am Baal Kadmon, and I'd like to thank you for watching and or listening to this video. It's been a while since I created a video, and everything is moving along. Everything is going well. I'm feeling a lot better with the vestibular neuritis and all of that, and things seem to be getting better. So that's really great. And thank you all for those who've reached out to me and wished me well and sort of checking in on me to see how I'm doing. I really appreciate it. On another note, I would like also to thank everyone who has enrolled in my program on the Watchers. It's 140 videos, and it's very, very extensive. I'm very proud of it, and I'm just honored that so many people enrolled in it, and you can enroll in it too if you would like at occultcourses.com. And it's one of the courses featured on the front page, along with two other courses that are the most popular at the moment. Now, in this video and in the next few videos, because I've noticed that people really enjoy the sort of the series of videos that I create when it's sort of on a related topic, this is going to be really interesting. And it's something that I've been thinking about for a while because so many people, I would have to say easily, and I'm not exaggerating, maybe 100 people over the last few years have asked me to create something about what I'm about to discuss here. Now, the next series of videos is going to be about the demonesses that are found in Judaism, right? We all know Lilith, right? I have a course on Lilith, and I will be discussing her too in one of the videos, but it won't be the first video. A lot of people know Nama or Naama. I have a video about her on my YouTube, more specifically about how she, according to Jewish tradition, actually might have been the reason why the angels fell, and you can see that video there. I will discuss her here too in this series of videos. And I'm going to create a program about her. I'm actually currently working on a program on the Sefer Yetzirah, the Kabbalistic understanding of the Psalms, and Tibetan Buddhism and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And the reason why I'm working on those is because I surveyed my the mailing list, and so many of you have chosen those three. In fact, they were sort of neck and neck. And so I'm working on them all in tandem, and I've already had so much information about them. So they'll come out pretty quickly. But anyway, back to this topic here. So over the next few videos, I'm going to discuss Lilith, Naama or Nama, Agrat bat Mahlat, and another called Eshet Zenunim. Now, in Jewish theology and demonology, these are the primary female demonic figures. And they persisted since antiquity, right through the medieval period. And again, they are Lilith, Naama, Agrat bat Mahlat, sometimes also known as Agrat, Mahlat, and then Eshet Zenunim, which literally just means women of whoredom. So these entities are depicted sort of as demonesses or spirit women who seduce, harm, and just wreak havoc not only on men but also children. And later Kabbalistic traditions describe them as the four mothers of demons, or the four demon queens, and they're usually consorts of Samael, who I also have a book about. Now, these figures, they span theological history. Some of the early roots are, obviously ancient Mesopotamia, and of course biblical roots. We have a lot of mention of them in the Talmud and other types of occult literature, and so they're pretty pervasive. Now, you would think that I would start these videos with Lilith or Naama, but no, I'm actually going to start them with the lesser known demonesses, so to speak, because I feel that they don't get as much quote unquote airtime. So this particular video is going to be about Agrat bat Mahlat, who is also known as Agrat. And sometimes people call her the dancing queen of demons. Now, Agrat bat Mahlat, or we can just call her Agrat, it's just easier, was introduced into Jewish lore, I guess you can say, a little bit later than the more popular demonesses like Lilith and Naamah. But her story is very dramatic. Now, her name, the whole name, Agrat bat Mahlat, which just means Agrat, daughter of Mahlat, is a little obscure. Now, Mahlat, her mother, could possibly derive from a word for disease. For example, disease in Hebrew is mahala. So maybe Mahlat could be derived from that word. Or it could simply just be a proper name, right? Now, Agrat or Igrat could also come from a few different words. Agrat could also be strife. Igeret could be, it's sort of an old-timey word for letter, but it's probably more strife. Now, in any case, Agrat's earliest notable appearance is in the Talmudic era, which is the post-Second Temple period. And she's, like I said, she's often called the dancing demon. Sometimes she's called the queen of demons herself. Now, there's one famous story about Agrat that involves a rabbi in the Talmud called, his name is Hanina ben Dosa, and he's around the 1st century AD. And another rabbi by the name of Rabbi Abaye, who was 4th century. Now, according to these stories that were preserved in the Midrash and sort of hinted at the Talmud, and these are both exegetical texts, the Talmud is sort of the oral Torah that explains like the laws of Judaism and all the intricacies and a lot more. And the Midrash is sort of homiletical. There's a lot of interesting stories. They add some context to biblical stories. Context that you just cannot derive from the Bible itself. Now, Agrat is known to roam with her sort of hosts of demons, particularly on Wednesday and Friday nights. In other versions, it's Tuesday and Saturday nights. And she would ride through the air in sort of like this fiery chariot and accompanied by 18 myriads or 180,000 destructive spirits. And she would dance on the rooftops of human dwellings, causing havoc and, spreading just havoc in general. Now, the Talmud in Pesachim 1:12b relates the story of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa encountering Agrat and managed to stop her rampage, and thus limiting her power. He pronounced a ban forbidding her from passing through inhabited areas except on those specific nights of the week, right? And then later, Abaya further curtailed her, only allowing her freedom on one night per week, or according to some, only on Friday nights. Now, Agrat herself, in one version, conceded to Rabbi Hanina, and she says, "Had your merit not appeared, I would have killed every one of you." This indicates her sort of deadly power before she was subdued in Pesachim 1:12b. Now, let us actually look at that verse because it does give some extra context. So, in the Talmud, Pesachim 112b. With regard to the instruction, do not go out alone at night. The Gemara states that this is as it was taught in the Baraita. One should not go out alone at night, neither on Tuesday nights nor on Sabbath nights, Friday nights. Because the demon Agrat, daughter of Mahlat, she and 180,000 angels of destruction go out at this time. And as each and every one of them has permission to destroy by itself, they are all the more dangerous when they go forth together. The Gemara states, Initially, these demons were present every day. Once Agrat, daughter of Mahlat, met Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa and said to him, "Had they not announced about you in the heavens, 'Be careful of Hanina and his Torah,' I would have placed you in danger." He said to her, "If I am considered important in heaven, I decree upon you that you should never travel through inhabited places." She said to him, "I beg you, leave me a little space." He left for her Sabbath night and Tuesday nights. And furthermore, once Agrat, daughter of Mahlat, met Abaye and said to him, "Had they not announced about you in the heavens, 'Be careful of Nachmani, Abaya, and his Torah,' I would have placed you in danger." He said to her, "If I am considered important in heaven, I decree upon you that you should never pass through inhabited places." The Gemara asks, "But we see that, notwithstanding these anecdotes, demons do pass through inhabited areas." The sages say in explanation, "These demons are found on the paths near the city. As horses belong to the demons flee along those paths, and the demons come to lead them away. Generally, however, demons do not enter inhabited places." So as you can see, she's very popular here, and she's having this discussion with these rabbis about, basically saying, "Listen, if I didn't know about you and your reputation, I would have placed you in harm's way." So now, through all these accounts, she is clearly emerging as sort of a wild, powerful demon of the night. She commands these immense forces, and she needed to be restrained by these quote-unquote holy men. But unlike Lilith, who was more associated with lust and childbirth, Agrat's early image is that of a sort of like a spectral witch. Remember, she's flying in the air, she's dancing on the roofs, she's riding and dancing at night with her demonic army. And so she's essentially spreading madness, right? Her domain was thought to be the open air at night. So she was often preying on travelers and people who were walking outside alone on those particular nights. So she wasn't as known for her sensuality, at least not in the Talmudic and Midrashic texts. Now, if we go into some of the more Kabbalistic texts, the more mystical texts, we find Agrat bat Mahlat was woven into the demonological genealogy of the Kabbalah. So in later writings, such as the Zohar and other various Kabbalistic texts, they placed Agrat alongside Lilith and Nama, or Neama, as one of the chief female spirits of sensuality. So in those texts, it describes Agrat as one of the four brides of Samael. And she is counted as an angel of sacred prostitution. So essentially, she was known as a succubi. And in some more elaborate legends, they attributed more and more power to Agrat. And there's one legend in particular that's very interesting, and it's a story about King Solomon and King David. Now, this is a medieval narrative. It was preserved in a chronicle called Beit Melech, and it was noted by quite a few folkloric scholars. And it tells that King Solomon, who had the authority over all spirits, once trapped a host of demons in a vessel, sort of like a genie bottle, right? And among these spirits was Agrat. And later, King David, who's, of course, Solomon's father, according to chronology, so this is sort of this anachronistic tale, discovered the vessel on the shore of the Dead Sea and unknowingly released Agrat back into the world. So it's sort of weird that it was sort of anachronistic this way. And you would actually find a lot of this in some Jewish legends. Now, in the course of one of these nights, Agrat bat Mahlat seduces King David, and they conceive a child by him, who's half demonic, right? and who would eventually become known as a sort of a new Asmodeus, right? So that's a really interesting little story they have here. And some versions identify the offspring between them with the evil Edomite king Hadad, sort of tying it to the actual adversary of Solomon in the Bible. You see, so they're trying to weave all these stories in together. Now, this is, of course, a fantastic story. It contradicts, of course, the biblical timelines, but what it's showing is that Agrat is intimately known and connected to the Davidic line, and with Asmodeus's lineage, the demon Asmodeus, which many of you know. So it just shows that she is very important, even though she's not mentioned as much, and she is both a seductress and mother of demon kings. Now, there's another story that surrounds Agrat, is the origin story of where she comes from, because her name, as we know her, is Agrat bat Mahlat, which means that she is a daughter. She is the daughter of Mahlat. Now, briefly, a 17th century Kabbalistic treatise by Rabbi Natan Netta Shapira relates that Mahlat, described as a daughter of the biblical Ishmael and granddaughter of the great Egyptian sorcerer, was exiled to the desert for her misdeeds. And there she encountered a demon named Igeret, or Igrathiel, and he took her as a lover. Now, the daughter born from this union was Agrat. So it's Agrat bat Mahlat. So she's literally the daughter of Mahlat from this union. Now, what's really intriguing about this, it goes on to claim that Mahlat, her mother, later married Esau, the brother of Jacob. So this inserts this demonic bloodline into the biblical family tree of Edom, which is Esau, who founded Edom, is the brother of Jacob. So this just goes to show you that these medieval Kabbalists weren't shy about blending these scriptural genealogies with demonology. So Agrat's heritage from just this half, exiled, half sorceress, sort of half human woman, gives her now this supernatural status. She's now in the world of humans, the world of demons, and she's even now part of the biblical tradition according to these stories. So as you can see, she's actually a lot more important than you'd think, because we always hear about, Naaman, Lilith, but Agrat herself has been woven really deeply into the biblical tradition through these medieval storytellers. And that's something that a lot of people don't seem to know. But she's very significant. Now let's move on a little bit more here, because there's something very interesting about her story, is that in some texts, some Kabbalistic texts, Agrat actually has a rivalry with Lilith. Some rabbis sort of saw this as like a competition between the demonesses for primacy. Now, there's a commentary called Yalkut Chadash, which assigns specific numbers of demons and legions to each demoness, right? So it says that Agrat, implied by her other name, dances at the head of 478 companies of demons, and Lilith howls at the head of 480 companies. Now, what does that mean? It means that they're almost equal in size of their hosts. Lilith has 480, Agrat has 478. So this says that there might be a potential rivalry in power, with Lilith just sort of edging out Agrat by just a little bit. There's even a story that on Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement in Judaism, Agrat, sometimes she's just known as Mahlat in some stories. It's weird how they get confused sometimes. is that Lilith and Agrat sort of meet each other, right? Each leads their army of these hundreds of demons. And on the night of Yom Kippur, they shriek at each other across a battlefield. I'm not sure if that's attempting to sort of out-wail each other, but they have this sort of annual war narrative. So it just dramatizes the idea of these two great queens of quote-unquote evil trying to contend for dominance, especially on Yom Kippur. So it's such an interesting thing, Agrat, because so many people don't really know about her, but her story is quite interesting. Her story is quite interesting. She's very much woven in to Judaism, but just because she's not as her story, even though it's a great story, it's not as deep as Lilith's. And so there's not a lot going on there. Like it's a great story, but there's not a lot going on there. We only have certain stories around Agrat. But I mean, they're substantial, but they're not nearly as substantial as Lilith and Nama or Nama. But the fact that she is woven into the biblical world through Ishmael's line, through King David and Solomon and Esau is a big deal. She's working behind the scenes in a way that people don't seem to realize. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That really helps me out. In the next installment, we're going to discuss another popular demoness in Judaism. I mean, popular within the text, but may not be as known in mainstream occultism other than maybe some brief mentions. And I don't know when I'm going to release it. Hopefully it'll be next week. I'm working on it, but I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the series. Obviously I'm not going so super deep like, let's say, a book would go, but I just wanted you to see that there are more quote unquote demonesses in Judaism other than Lilith and Naamah, and they are also quite powerful. With that, I will see you in the next video. So mote it be.